All right, well, hello everyone. It's great to be here. I'm excited to talk a little bit about our work on the Senate Committee on Appropriations. Thanks for having me at this conference. Really excited. So I'm Josh Kravitz. I'm leading our technology and data efforts on the committee. One thing I should say before I get started is I'm here as an individual, not representing the committee in any way, or the chair or ranking member or the vice chair of the committee. So before I get started, I want to say a little bit about what the Senate Committee on Appropriations does. Briefly, we are tasked with funding the government on an annual basis. In the US, we fund the government on a fiscal year basis, and it ends up being between 1.5 and 1.7 trillion dollars each year. And so the task of this committee is really an annual cadence process. And so we're trying to build this product and pass this product by the end of the fiscal year. So the process that we go through is kind of fourfold. We have the member request process, where members are solicited for requests, things that they would like to see in the bill. There's the financial ledgers process, which allows us to represent the funding we provide to agencies and to programs within the federal government in kind of a machine readable format. And then there's the bill and the report. The bill is the law. The report is basically congressional intent. It's extra language that accompanies the bill. So we're going to focus on the first two, member requests and financial ledgers. Those are kind of the processes that I've been focused on for the last year or two here on the committee. So member requests. So the committee's member request system allows member offices to submit and committees to respond to requests. And this system is really about machining members' interests into law, right? And so we're thinking about what are the priorities and interests of different members, and how can we take those interests and create a final product that leads to a bill that will be passed, that will get the votes it needs. And generally what our office does is, right, we're translating business rules and laws into code in a sense. So members submit requests for bill or report language, program funding levels, or funding for specific projects in the state they represent. Let's go to the next slide here. So this is just a screenshot of our content management system. It gets the job done. Members submit requests into the system. This is not a system I've worked on a lot. It was here before I joined. But something we did do is we were able to gain access to the data that supports the system. And I obviously cannot show the exact numbers, which is why the numbers are blurred out. And this is just one page, but we've been able to create these comprehensive dashboards that really allow our staff to see top line numbers and information at their fingertips, right? And this is real time. So as data is being updated amongst the thousands and thousands and thousands of requests we get from members, our staff can see this data, see the high level information, and make decisions. There's also this other tool, which I'll talk a bit more, or talk more about in a bit. I'll go a bit more into it as a deep dive, but this is a tool, there's no heading, but it's called Matchmaker. One of the issues we've encountered is that members submit the same request for the same project, but they don't collaborate, they don't coordinate. And so our staff have to identify these duplicate requests and link them together. And I'll talk later more about this as to why we have to do this. So that was member requests. I'm going quite fast. We're on to financial ledgers. That's the second piece of the workflow. The financial ledger is, right, the data representation, the machine readable representation of the appropriations made in law. And just to clarify, appropriations is just the term we use for funding specific programs in the federal government. And so this is a table of data that supports customers across Capitol Hill, in the Senate, in the House of Representatives, in the Congressional Budget Office, which is a budgetary office that supports both chambers, and the Treasury in the executive branch as well. So this is just a screenshot from, this is actually the bill that the Senate marked up and passed, or hasn't passed yet, but it passed committee for fiscal year 2024. You can see at the top, this is what these tables look like in their final printed format. You can see On the left-hand side, there's the item, for example, the office of the secretary. Within the agricultural programs, you can see the appropriation for the 2023 fiscal year. You can see the budget estimate, which is another way of saying the request that the president made for the next fiscal year, and the committee recommendation, which is the amount of money the committee recommends is appropriated for this account, for this item. Let's see. This is a screenshot of kind of what happens behind the scenes. So this is the data system that holds these tables. This is the same exact section of the table you just saw. So what you just saw in the previous slide, on the previous slide, which I can go right here, that's the final printed version in the bill. This page is the application that lets us access and modify the information. Now you can see it probably looks a little old, and if you have a keen eye, you might notice it looks a little bit like a Windows executable application, and you'd be exactly right. So this was an application built in the 90s, and it's an application that the Senate, the House of Representatives, and the Congressional Budget Office still use to this day. But it has a lot of problems, as you can imagine, one of which is historically, at least in the Senate side, there's one staff member who's in charge of the system, and our subcommittee staff who are writing these bills, our committee staff who are writing these bills, basically take a printed piece of paper with hand edits, hand it to this one person who manually enters the information into the system. So this is obviously a big problem. It's dependent on one person. More and more these days, there's less and less time for our staff to produce these bills. It takes longer and longer for leaders to make decisions. And it's also error prone, right? Because the staff, this one staffer is not the subject matter expert, and the committee staff really know this policy best. So one of the opportunities we took to modernize was through basically making a front end interface. So this was built in, Python, TypeScript, JavaScript, all these technological tools. And this basically allowed staff to enter their numbers in the system in real time, see the numbers update, see if they're hitting their allocation, and allow them to export to various formats. But of course, this is just a Band-Aid on top of a legacy application. We really need to think more about how to structure this data and what this looks like for the future. And one of the challenges we've kind of encountered, is like, we can only do so much from the Senate. It's really a problem of coordinating 3 different bodies, and mostly the Senate and the House of Representatives, so 2 different bodies, in such a way that we can build a joint system. But that's a people problem, which is a hard problem to solve, but an important one. So I know I just have a couple more minutes, so I'm going to quickly go through this case study of duplicate requests. So we're going to jump back to the world of member requests. So we just went through member requests, understanding the priorities of members, and financial ledgers, which is the data representation of the funding. We're going to step number 1, member requests. One type of member request is an earmark. So this is a request for a specific project in a specific location. So on this table, you can see this is the final printed version in the bill. At the top row, you can see there's a Air Force Alabama project at the Maxwell Air Force Base, and the project is for Construct Addition Air Command and Staff College. And it says how much it was funded for and who the requesters were. And one of the issues, if you see in this red little rectangle, is that sometimes you'll have 2 senators on a single request. And that's because in our system, they submit requests independently, but we really want to fund the project just a single time. And we want to make sure we're attributing credit to the correct senators. So what do we do, Normally, staff would go through their large spreadsheet with thousands of requests and try to find these duplicates. That's what they did last year. This year, we built a system that, again, I call Matchmaker, I mentioned earlier, is basically a system that uses AI to surface simple models, to surface potential duplicates. And in this case, we look at title and recipient. I'm going to go through this quickly just because I know I'm near end of time, but folks can ask me more questions about this. But we got great feedback from this. It saved, according to staff, it saved them days or even weeks of time compared to the prior year. And it wasn't perfect. It missed some duplicates. It misidentified others. But for us, we see that as just an opportunity to improve the model. Here's a big a big picture screenshot of Matchmaker. But one thing I want to say, the slide title, I had a much worse slide title, but we asked ChatGPT to create something more creative. So the title we have here is AI without UI, a symphony without a conductor. And the point I want to make here is that I'm not saying this is a perfect interface, but I think the thing we've really learned is that like we can't just take AI and throw it at our staff. We really need to make data consumable and make it right, deploy it to our staff in such a way that it's presented clearly and intuitively, and staff understand right what the AI is doing, how the model works, how it's coming to its conclusions, what they should do with that information. And fundamentally, right, these principles we're thinking about is all about, providing value to our users, to our staff. And so that's all to say, at a high level, our principles are really like thinking about working small and delivering often, making sure we de-risk everything we're doing, talk to our staff constantly, and really just like, because a lot of this work is showing staff that we can do things differently. It's doing demos instead of memos, right? Being able to show to our staff, here's what this could be. What do you think? And getting feedback. Not everything we've done is perfect. It's far from it, but we think these principles have really allowed us to learn quickly and fail fast in the Silicon Valley sense of the word. And that's all I got. Sorry if I went a little over.